Welcome to Conceris Connect, Small Business Small Talk Podcast, Episode 2. I'm Eve Mercer, Recruiting and HR Manager, and I'm joined by Tom Woodward, Conceris Founder and Executive Vice President. Well, welcome, Tom. We made it to Episode 2.
How are you today?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, and I don't know if we mentioned it last time. Tom, you're in Virginia, and I am in Bismarck, North Dakota. And it has been pretty cold here, but we're expecting another storm tonight. And I know you guys are too. And it was pretty bad in Virginia about a week and a half ago with that other storm that came through.
It was. I think it caught the area by surprise. Mm-hmm. I think over the last several years, we don't get the same amount of snowfall that we used to. And so I think meteorologists, plows, the Virginia Department of Transportation, even commuters they're caught off guard.
Yeah, it was a huge mess. It was New Year's weekend. Everybody was trying to get home and stuck on that Interstate 95. And I know one of our coworkers didn't have power for about 5 days. So even though I'm from Virginia and I live in Bismarck, North Dakota now, I will take Bismarck's weather over that mess that you guys had, yeah. I think, for sure. Well,
you just keep sending it our way.
I think so. We're supposed to get ours tonight, and you will get it in a couple of days. So yeah, sorry about that.
Those winds just keep bringing it over.
That's the way it works. Well, I know that we wanted to jump right into it's the beginning of the year. We've been talking that annual strategic plan. Conceris, we hit that 15-year mark in, I think it was September of last year, 2021. And kind of explain a little bit about how you approach the new year and what you put into a strategic plan.
Sure. One thing I always think about is you don't know where your company is going if you don't know where you're at, even every single day. And I think what happens with strategic plans is companies will draft them, and then the document isn't open for the entire year. It just kind of collects this pixel dust, on a hard drive somewhere. And, strategic plans at Conceris, we mainly focus on 3 areas. So revenue growth, our principal target markets, and then evolving core capabilities that we want to, continue to develop. And, from that strategic plan, we'll build out an opportunity pipeline. And we used to do it in a spreadsheet. That is an industry standard. Most companies, even large and small, all will use as a tracking mechanism, use an Excel spreadsheet to build out a pipeline. But we felt like that pipeline doesn't really align closely with that strategic plan, and then it's not measurable or time bound. Mm-hmm. And I think you've had some experience with that side of it, being on our calls. What's your perception?
Yeah, I have. I have seen a lot of companies, over the last couple of years really move away from those Excel spreadsheets and going to something more cloud-based, something more intuitive, where that database that you're creating is in the background and having that overlay of something that's a little bit more user-friendly and can create reports. Hubspot was one that we kind of started with, then at the beginning of this new year, or really at the end of last year, went back to just to see if it was something that could work a little bit better for us and keeping things organized and that pipeline looking the way that we want it to. And I don't know, what were your thoughts on that now that we've used it a little bit more?
Yeah, I think there's 2 other areas that especially in the remote workforce environment that we're in because of the pandemic, is how do you communicate that corporate vision to all your team members at the corporate level, but also on the contractor side, of not only communicating that strategic vision on a weekly basis, but also that they know that they're part of something important, that they understand where the company's going and they see the vision and the contributions that the team is making, but also at an individual level. And then all the other side is the delegation piece. I've noticed that, Harvey and I, we're juggling multiple tasks every single day. And while no task I feel is menial, there are some that we want to offload to our corporate team. We have a great corporate team at Conceris, and everybody has the unique skill set and expertise that they can, bring a specific skill to business development, to the strategic plan. And we realize that corporate leaders can't do it all.
Mm-hmm.
We started off with just the two of us, and now that we've expanded and we want to reach some new specific revenue targets for 2022, we realize we got to bring everybody into
Right.
each project.
Yeah, and you mentioned Harvey. He's our president and CEO. And yeah, it's when you bring in more people to the team and you want to delegate, you've got these pieces that people need to take ownership of. That Excel spreadsheet can be so cold. It's not very intuitive. And in my past experience, you could have somebody, obviously it can be locked down. It could be very sophisticated, but somebody could mess it up, or the person who has ownership, they're the ones who are always in there. They're the ones keeping it clean and neat and tidy. So having a place that we can go to where people can provide the input that we need to help with the planning.
I've realized, even for myself, it's hard to offload work sometimes. You get accustomed to doing things a certain way, but I think it's important to build that trust and that responsibility and let go of some control.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, there's a lot of intel gathering and research that goes into business development, into pipelines that align with that strategic plan, which we'll get into, of how you break down some of those tasks that folks who are involved with HR or your recruiter, and they have some time available. I think it's good. And that leads to this concept of opportunity cost. And at a high level, opportunity cost is, for every hour that you focus on a particular project or task, you're foregoing potential other tasks that could be more impactful or more purposeful, for executives to be focusing on. And that strategic focus could lead to growth of 10 times, 100 times the size of the current company. If you're focusing on the right opportunity and the right project, I think that will quickly get to your strategic goals for the year.
Right. I think that becomes exponential, really, is what you're saying. Yeah.
And it's important not to wing intentions, but actually focus on the strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
You draft a strategic plan. It sits in a share folder somewhere on a corporate drive.
Right. Yeah, you did it for a reason. You need to use it.
Make sure it always stays at the forefront of what the intentions are, at a daily and weekly basis. Mm-hmm. And what we want to get into here a little bit is how we go about applying that. So maybe we could go over our meeting structure a little bit, Eve, on how we use Teams calls.
Yeah, exactly. And I know, sort of what you mentioned before, for myself being in HR and recruiting, it's very easy just to focus on that, but not see the bigger picture of what Conceris is doing. And so I think that really helps me being involved in these meetings on the team calls. So right now we do 3 calls a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, just to touch base with our corporate staff. But also on Wednesdays, we've been dedicating that to business development. And, like I said before, even though I do recruiting, it's eye-opening to me to see what we're doing on the business development side, and also seeing ways that I can contribute.
And what we're trying to do in 2022 is break down those Monday, Wednesday, Friday calls and start to build a structure that we're reviewing daily tasks and milestones against any particular opportunity or project. And the first meeting of the month, we'll set those monthly projects and objectives, how they align to the strategic plan, and then review those past month's projects, issues, and lessons from the previous month. So the very first Teams call of the month will kind of go through that, look and review, and then what's upcoming. And so just to kind of keep things simple, so if we want to grow by $8 million in 2022, we want to be on track, every quarter to kind of be at that $2 million mark of new revenue coming in. So we want to make sure that opportunities that we're looking at, opportunities that we're running capture, that those tasks that we break down, on a daily basis, kind of show progress towards meeting those goals.
Yeah, and always keeping that strategic plan there as the bar. And, like you said, don't wing it. You set up that plan for a reason. So, use that to, be that barometer of what you're doing throughout the year. Not to say that you wouldn't make adjustments, though, as you went forward, but, always keeping that as part of the focus.
Mm-hmm. And Friday meetings is very similar to that first meeting of the month. We'll look at the past week's tasks and how they map to the monthly projects that we set forth, and then do a quick review of the week's progress. And I think that allows us to do a couple things in a dashboard format. So you mentioned some of the tools that we evaluated over the last year, that allows us to track, actual progress versus anticipated. And you mentioned a couple of those. So what were the ones that you've been involved with, some of the initial research and planning?
Yeah, I mean, HubSpot's really the main one that we used before. We've come back to. We've also been using Monday.com. I know that for me, it's been helpful on the recruiting side for onboarding and things of that nature. But being able to assign the tasks, see the tasks, and seeing that they're completed, being able to have something measurable, I think for anybody is really important.
I look at it. I look at this dashboard technique. Whether we've looked at Monday.com, we've looked at HubSpot. I mentioned the traditional spreadsheet,
right? That
is still an industry standard. I look at it as a habit tracker, and as we break down each opportunity, and we'll say it's a project, but if we're looking at one opportunity, what we try to do for the top priorities of the week is to come up with 3 to 5 important tasks that align to that opportunity that we map out for the upcoming week. And what that allows us to do is make that project or task something that's specific or measurable, not just say research, Navy IMIT support services, but actually come up with a very specific task. Like,
what am I going to do that?
Right. Right. I want to obtain the previous PWS that was in the last RFP, and I want to build out a capabilities matrix based off of that statement of work, and then I want to disseminate that to 3 of our partners. It's very, very specific. And, we'll try to set a time-bound measurement on that. So, for example, if that's a task for Monday, we'll set a deadline that needs to be done by, Wednesday or by Friday's call. And that way we can track each task on these calls. And I think that allows us to do a quick spot check of where there might be some gaps, whether in time utilization or focus. It also could be a skill set that maybe within our corporate team we're just missing a particular skill set. So do we need to get some education for our folks, or do we need to bring in a consultant to help us with a particular task to keep things moving forward? And I think it's a simple yes/no test that we can ask the team as we complete or tasks are left undone. And it really becomes obvious when things aren't completed. And it just allows us to come up with a different approach or skill set that's needed to complete that assignment.
Right. And like you said, knowing when to delegate too. There might be somebody who has a skill, or they'd like to try something. So yeah, I think that whole involvement, I mean, obviously we're a small company, and so we can bring our entire corporate team together to do this. But it's been so helpful to me to have the opportunity to be involved, but also to see the direction of Canceris and the ways that I can contribute and help more.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that direction. As a new employee comes onto the corporate team, when they hear this discussion at each meeting, they realize the company is moving in a specific direction, and there's continuity and commitment across the executive team on, these are the top priorities and this is how everybody can get involved. And one example was, this week you and I were talking about getting Amy involved. So Amy is one of our newest recruiters, but helping her get familiar with how we build account plans. So, for example, we're looking at work out in San Diego with NAV4, and how do you go about doing that research with all the online resources available? Understanding their mission, understanding their budgets, their strategic plan, what their focus and issues are, in particular agency that we're focusing on. And I think, for Amy, I think it helps her with some of that training and being able to apply in her daily work, getting her involved with maybe a broader focus of the company versus just being a recruiter.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in cross training. I've been in places where people in different departments have built those silos, and nobody's going in and nobody's coming out, and they just hold on to whatever that piece is and don't allow anybody else to participate. And it can cause a lot of problems on a range of levels, but just allowing everybody to contribute in some way helps them learn their job a little bit better, but as well as what somebody else's job is. And I don't know, I just think it makes for a better workplace overall.
Yeah, I agree. How can listeners get involved with the discussion and bringing other views and into the discussion? Is there a way that people can contribute?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of different ways. You might have come across this on YouTube. There's a comment section in there. We're also on LinkedIn and Facebook, so feel free to reach out that way. And also CancerisConnect.com. We have a blog on there that we've also started, and we'd love to, have you reach out any way that you'd like. So yeah, we're in this to, share what we've learned, but we want to learn from others as well.
Anything else you want to cover?
No, I think that's it.
All righty.
All right. Well, thanks, Tom. We'll see you next time.
Talk
Bye-bye.
to you soon. Okay. All right. Bye.